Welcome back, community, to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite Wilson, C-Suite Trusted Advisor, Board Director, and Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Strategy Consultant, helping members of the C-Suite and their teams reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. We are in the month of November, the month of Thanksgiving, and I am so thankful to have joining us for our final conversation, real conversation from the C-Suite, Ms. Jasmine Bellamy. She is the head merchant and culture transformer for Reebok, and she has been recognized by Sports Illustrated as among the top 100 influential Black women in sports. Jasmine, thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you.
It is such a thrill to have you with us. Wow, you have shared a lot with us in our previous 2 episodes. And in this last episode, I want to ask you a heavy-hitting question. With all that you've given us about love and vulnerability in terms of leadership that's most effective, and I dare say most effective in today's environment, I want to know how you align the roles of head merchant and culture transformer at Reebok, especially now that inclusion is trending, that diversity is kind of taking a back seat. And in that context, what was your greatest achievement and your greatest challenge in your DEI work at Reebok?
Yeah, it's a great question. First, I've been in merchandising for 30 years. That's professionally my skill set. The interesting thing is, I have the honor of leading community and culture at Reebok. It started out as change management under United Against Racism after the murder of George Floyd, and it's evolved as we've evolved. I think that I say often that the reason why that can happen is because I came to work as my full self for the first time in 30 years. So my business expertise as a merchant met the budding theologian who was just starting seminary, who was, becoming this love practitioner and student of love, and inspired by the work of a Dr. King and a Thich Nhat Hanh. And when the invitation came for me to lead change management, all of that came to do that work. And so I wouldn't be here now in really having the most, it's been the most fulfilling role I've had in my career. I would not be in my doctoral program had it not been the fact that I could be this practitioner at work. And so much of it is unleashing my own potential is how those jobs come together. And when you ask the question about the downtrending of diversity, I think, again, it goes back to what I said in episode 1 about this shift from the intellectual and from the head to the heart. And so for me, if we are seeing humans and all of their difference, and understanding the value of that difference, understanding our own blind spots, understanding how we bring all of that in concert together to be able to produce a beautiful symphony, then I don't know how one is downtrending versus another, right? Because I think what can happen is then we're trying to make us all the same. And we lose beauty in that. So I think when I think about the work that I've done at Reebok in particular, I was the creator and co-facilitator of Courageous Conversations. It's a platform for communal transformation. It is the bridge that we use to move from the intellectual understanding of DEI to the actual lived experience, heartfelt, seeing people kind of journey. And so what I saw is that as I saw the power of narrative, I saw the power of when I share a story, how it touches the heart of another human, and then another one, and then another one. And then all of a sudden we have a bond that is been fortified, and our eyes have been open. I now see you differently. There becomes a deepened trust, and we can move together respecting all of that. And also we learn more. So, we are exposed to somebody else's story, and we're getting a view of life that we've just never had. And you can't. You can only live in your own body. And so it's the gift that you receive in the other when they give you the honor of hearing their stories. And we expand when they do that. And so that is what I've really watched over and over and over again. We have had 23 courageous conversations. It has become a part of our community. And we continue to be shaped by the stories of others. And we are willing to lean into these difficult conversations because love gives us courage to do so. And so, I mean, I hope that answers your question, but that's really been my experience for me. I personally see DEI work as intercultural formation, that it is really about how I learn to become a part of others by embracing and being open to their difference and being transformed by it, and becoming, having my aperture widened now because I have those stories with me. And so that's, inclusion has to happen also for me to be willing to hear those stories, but it's the difference in the story. That's the texture. That's the beauty. Like, think about having an orchestra that had only one instrument.
Right. Yeah.
What's the beauty in that? I mean, I was even at a string quartet recently, and the difference in all of those string instruments, you could hear each one, but you heard how they came together and created a piece of art. And so that's my 2 cents on the topic as a whole. But I think it just goes back to, do we have a heart open to difference? Are we open to see people? Are we open to be able to see their difference and ours, and that one's not better than the other? But how we can all expand by the knowing or being known of each other. And so that's how I approach the work. And it's again, I wouldn't have been able to be here if it weren't for all of the steps before. And if I didn't come to work as my full self, transparently as who I am, and bring my gifts to the table. And so I always feel that my whole experience is an example of the experience of when you bring diverse voices to the table, as a Black woman, as a theologian, as a business person, bringing all of that might seem super different, but how it can be transformative, and not only transform the business, but also transform the culture.
I love your illustration about an orchestra, because if you think about an orchestra, whether it's your finger cymbals or whether it's the big, bass drum or whatever it is, and then there are instruments from different cultures. There are the African instruments, there are the Latin instruments, there are the Asian instruments, every instrument. And in the hearing and the rendering of the music, if you listen, you can hear what, physically looks like the most insignificant thing, but it can have the most impact at the right time in the music. I was talking to a very dear friend of mine, Terry Bird. She's also a doctoral candidate. And we were also discussing earlier this week about just showing up as your full self. Tell me, when did you realize that you hadn't been doing it? And what was the difference when you realized that you were doing it?
Yeah, I think I was formed to come to work in a particular way, what we deemed professional,
Yes.
all those things. And so we put our suits on and we come to work and we conform. It wasn't until I was bought to Reebok by a former colleague who, we had a mutual respect for each other. And so I came into the space knowing that I had a person who saw my dopeness, right? I didn't have to show up to prove to them who I was. They bought me in because of my expertise, and they wanted me to have at it, right? Like, go. And we worked together. And so there was safety in that. There was safety in someone seeing me and valuing me for my contribution and trusting it.
Mm-hmm.
That unlocked something for me. And I didn't realize that I didn't have it all of those years.
Mm.
You know? And so again, that was the change for me. And I realized that, yeah, I can keep coming to work fully me, and I'm gonna get, like, they're gonna get the best out of me when I do that. And I think that's been the thing for me, is that I know that I'm the best leader I've ever been, because I've shown up as me, not with, you know, in the way that somebody thought I should show up, but I showed up as me. And it's just made the world a difference. My team feels it, I feel it, our organization feels it. And I think that's the beauty of being able to create an invitation for people to show up at work as their full selves.
You know, when you said go, that triggered me in a couple of different ways. Number one, leaders, go out there and be your authentic self so that you can go out there and encourage your own folks to be their authentic selves. And also, I'm going to have to let you go because I know you've got another meeting that you've got to get to. Jasmine Bellamy, head merchant and culture transformer at Reebok. We can see why. Thank you so much for joining us. Very grateful for your style of leadership. Very grateful that you are going on to get your doctorate, and very grateful that you will be among the leadership transformers of tomorrow. Community, you have got to go back and listen to this series with Jasmine Bellamy. To do that, go back to my website, dranita.com, spell out the word doctor. On the landing page in the top in the center, you want to click the link that says Keeping It Real Podcast. And while you're there, check out some of my resources and services. And as always, this is one in particular. I want you to get in the flow, follow, like, and overshare this series with Jasmine Bellamy about how leaders can bring love into the workplace. Until next time, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed, keep it real, and happy Thanksgiving.